But first, let's start with something most parents will recognize instantly, a school bag that feels heavier than it should. This is a complaint that usually gets brushed aside. Now, obviously, this isn't a new problem. Parents have raised concerns for years. Doctors have warned about it for just as long. Yet, in most schools, nothing really changes. Parents say children are carrying more than their bodies can handle, and this isn't about one bad day or one heavy book alone. It is a daily load, and younger children are taking the biggest hit. Doctors, amidst all this, are clear on the issue. Heavy school bags put strain on growing spines, postures get affected, and this happens early on. Muscle, nerve stress builds very quietly over time. The worrying part is that pain doesn't always show up immediately. Sometimes the damage appears years later. In many schools, all textbooks are prescribed every single day. There are no lockers, book schedules are rarely shared, homework loads are rarely questioned, and the burden shifts entirely to parents and children. Against this backdrop, one state has decided to act, which is Kerala. Kerala has cleared a plan to reduce school bag weight. The state says bag weight will be linked to children and their health. Academic load will be spread more evenly, and schools will be asked to cut what children carry every single day. What makes this stand out is the approach. Most states remember, issue guidelines and move on. Kerala is looking at changing how classrooms function. The focus is on daily school reality, where health and learning are treated together, not separately. But implementation will really show the whole truth. And the question is, have we ignored a school-going child's necessity for far too long without evaluating the ill effects of the burden that comes alongside every single day? And how do we fix it now? So let's bring in our guest joining us this morning. Dr. Sanjeev Bagai, Padma Shri awardee and senior pediatric expert, is with us on the broadcast, along with Riddhi Deora, parenting coach. And our third guest this morning is Rachna Goel, once again parental coach and educator. Thank you to the three of you for being with us on the Breakfast Club. Dr. Bagai, if I can begin with you, what is that moment that parents possibly realize, and this as per everyone who's come to you, who said that we started noticing these small little postural changes is why we felt the need to really reach out to you. So no pain really in the neck, in the back, no pain whatsoever, but there's some shift in the way my child is walking, sitting, and it could really have something to do with the weight they're carrying in their school bags. Tell us about some of these parental concerns that parents have come to you with.
Good morning. Unfortunately, it comes to light as the ill effects of short-term and long-term very heavy school bags is when the child is already having certain damages and is actually crying in pain. The real issue is of two folds. One is the school, and second is the index part as the school bag. Now, there are set guidelines that a smaller child of class 1 and class 2 should not carry more than 1 to 1.5 kg school bag, and children in high schools in class 8, 9 and 10 shouldn't carry more than a 5 kg school bag. There are also given dimensions of ranging between 12 inches to 15 inches, going up to 15 inches to 25 inches.
Recording in progress.
The real that it should not exceed under any circumstances more than 5% of body weight. Now, each child is different, the weight of a child is different, the structural strength of a child is different, and it has to be bilaterally equally distributed across two shoulders, well padded. It should be strapped in the front at the sternum so that there is a proper gravitational distribution of weight. And more importantly, since the bags are so heavy, carrying not one but maybe two water bottles, especially in summer months, and therefore there is hardly any space for a child to be carrying sports equipment or anything else which the child requires as extracurricular activities. Back pains, shoulder pains, spine deformities, and these are real. I have even seen children coming in class 6 and class 7 having MRIs done, and they have a disc which is showing. At that age, this is unfair, unacceptable, unlawful, illegal. But who cares? Why no one cares is that the schools have now become a production factory in which they have not one, but they have up to 26 sections per class. They are fitting in more than 50 to 60 students per class. This is just a production house of producing small robots with no attention given as to the needs of a child or the parents. There has to be proper locker systems in school. There is no space for it because you have overloaded the entire
Yeah.
system. It's for financial gains. There is no place where a child can keep sports goods. There is no declaration of which subjects have to be covered. A small child has more than 6 or 7 subjects covered during the course
Interestingly, Dr.
of
Bagai,
morning to afternoon.
a lot of schools are following policies on paper. Interestingly, on paper, everyone is ensuring that everything is going noticed, that children are not carrying excessively heavy bags, that there are locker facilities. But when it comes down to implementation, that's where the real challenge kicks in. Ms. Riddhi, how do you look at this? Of the experience that you've had, now, what we figured out through the course of just understanding how different schools in different parts of the country operate. Kerala, of course, is now trying to set a little bit of a pattern here on how other schools can really copy-paste their model if it turns out to be successful. But across India, we've seen the 10% criteria that Dr. Bagai spoke of. That, on paper, should be followed. Several other states are also looking at their own brackets of how much weight vis-a-vis the body weight should be allowed. But who's really checking all of this? Are regular checks taking place? So are students' bags, the kind of weight that they're carrying on their shoulders, to begin with, is that happening?
Correct. So basically, what I feel, there's also a little lack of awareness as far as parents are concerned. Like, of course, we know that the bag is very heavy and we should not, but there are no guidelines that are communicated to the parents. Like, schools have their timetables, school schedules, and all of that, but parents do not usually know that, like what Dr. Bagga shared, that, it should be 5% of the body weight, this should be the dimension of the school bag. Usually parents are buying bags from Amazon, or they'll go and buy some fancy bag, and maybe it's not the best bag for your child. Also, sometimes, when I go to drop my son off at school, I would see that the bags are a little tilted because the weight is not distributed. Like, when I'm dropping him off, I'm seeing that, water bottle is placed on one side, so the bag is tera, and because of which the body of the child also gets tilted. So I feel like with schools, of course, because most parents don't know of this, they just keep telling the child that bag bhari hai, halka kar lo. Like, if I look at myself as a parent also, the days I see my child is carrying a very heavy bag, I'll tell him that, can you remove a few things? I think your bag is too heavy.
Are parents checking with the children's timetable? So are you going back, checking the timetable, and then seeing which textbooks, which notebooks are actually finding a place in their school bags?
It would vary from parent to parent. It depends on how involved the parent is. Some parents would check.
So that becomes
the
an
bag.
important part of the entire process. Parents need to be
Correct.
as involved.
Yes, parents need to get involved, but after a certain age, you can't really get involved. Like, if I look at my own child, he's only 8. Now, he loves to read books. So he always wants to carry storybooks with him. And I keep telling him that your bag is already so heavy, so, remove a few things. But he's like, no, mommy, I need my books. So, it's after a point, even parents, even if they wish to make the bag light, it can be challenging because, children have their own interests. They want to carry a certain type of lunchbox. They want to carry a certain type of, like stationery kit, like the pencil box. Some children like to carry a very fancy thing. So maybe if there is a certain standard as far as like the uniform, if you standardize the bag, you standardize the pencil box, you standardize the lunch box, just like you have a uniform for every school. So if you can standardize all of this, then I think it would be nice if you can take into details the health points, like, this bag would be appropriate for a child in standard 2, and this bag is appropriate for somebody who's going to, let's say,
So a lot of micromanaging essentially needs to be done. But there's another challenge here, Ms. Rachna, and if I may come to you for more. The other challenge a lot of parents complain of is how their children feel the need to keep loading their school bags with additional textbooks, everything out of fear. So the fear that teachers may scold them if they do not take the necessary textbooks, that fear is so much that even if they don't have a certain class period that particular day, just out of fear, they're going to insert that textbook or the notebook in their bag.
That's very right, very correctly pointed. And thank you so much for giving me this opportunity to share my insights. As an educator, as a parental coach, and as a teacher myself, I truly acknowledge what you have been trying to say. There is a fear among children. More than that, as an educator, I feel there is a need to bring a shift in the pedagogy. We are actually focusing a lot on the theoretical concepts, the textual learning. We need to bring in the experiential learning model. This is the need of the hour. We really need to develop lifelong learners rather than developing and producing rote learners. And that is where this entire concept of adding this burden of textbooks is there. We really need to eliminate that and bring in the new concepts. We are in the 21st century, but are we really teaching those 21st century skills where focus should not be more on books, and thereby we can eliminate this burden of heavy bags.
So you eliminate books and you bring in screens, Ms. Rachna. That's the but.
Definitely not. Definitely okay. Not just screens. We need to incorporate technology to a certain extent. But yes, we need to bring in real lifetime projects. Actual sessions wherein we can focus more on libraries. We use these libraries in school just as storage spaces rather than using them as a model to facilitate learning, wherein children can be encouraged to participate in discussions, real life discussions, the real life projects, the experiential learning, where we can teach them science and social studies in a practical manner. Bring in these current affairs for discussions. This will facilitate communication. This will help them in critical thinking, which is what I, as an educator, I feel we are lacking, and our education system is failing. So I feel technology should be added. The resources are already there in schools. The smart boards are there. But we need to eliminate the extra burden of books. There can be certain core subjects that can be fixed for a particular day. We can have bagless days for 1 or 2 days during the week, wherein the focus should be more on extracurricular activities, sports, arts, music, depending upon the interest of the child. So I personally feel this will help not just the parents in micromanaging things, but it will also help the learners to develop that critical thinking and those 21st century skills. Because definitely we are in that day and age where degrees should be replaced by skills. So skills development is the need of the hour, as per my opinion.
Okay, Dr. Pagai, let's go back to the health perspective here. And what medical science tells us. We now have established that there comes a point in a child's life or educational circle that he starts carrying that kind of weight to an extent that it starts pulling their body down. At what point do you think that becomes dangerous and can have long-term spinal problems? So what are these early warnings that parents must pick on and show a doctor, really figure out how they can go about it sooner?
Yeah, so just few very quick points. I think extra burden of very excess weight bag does cause spinal pain. It begins with pain, discomfort, tilting on one side. The posture becomes abnormal. The gait or the walking style becomes abnormal. The fall of the feet while walking takes a different curvature. It can happen in about few months. But here we are looking at many years of carrying this extra burden. It's like carrying 10 or 15 kg dumbbells with you as a child for many, many hours. A lot of those children go by school buses, which are overcramped. They have to carry their bags in the shoulders or even in the hand, climbing up the steps, frequent falls, there's the risk of injury. More importantly, I think the schools now have to stop producing memorizing small robots. We are losing the fact that we have to develop the cognitive skills of a child and a value system of a child. Why on earth does marks become overwhelmingly as a barometer of success? Complete nonsense. No one in the world looks at marks after a child passes class 10 or class 12. And I've said this on so many different forums and so many lectures. It's the most ridiculous thing to gauge a child's success or a child as a whole, as a personality, on marks and grades. But unfortunately, we are living in an unprecedented era in which grades define a child and a family. Peer pressure, parental pressure itself. That so-and-so's got so many marks and things. Why are all subjects taught on all days? You don't have to carry 7 or 8 different subjects on every day. There has to be a better control on the curriculum and the spacing of the subjects which are taught. Also, schools must have lockers. It has to become mandatory. But if you want to make a school into a factory by pushing in more number of students so for financial gains, then the net result is we'll produce kids which are mentally and psychologically weaker, physically damaged, and mentally harassed. This is a pure psychological trauma on children. And overall, we forget one bottom line is the mental health of a child is going to define our nation in the next 10, 15 years. We need to pay more attention that the child has to be stress-free, no anxiety, no stress. We have to move away from these Monday tests. It's such a trauma on children. The children are packing their bags with every known particular thing. The tiffin is about at least 400, 500 grams.
Not just that, the kind of homework they're bringing back. Now, increasingly, we're looking at summer vacations, winter break, all of that constitutes or makes up for so much homework load, and parents have been constantly complaining about it. Yes, Dr. Bagai, sorry, you were saying.
Yeah, I'll just take 60 seconds more. The weight of a bottle itself is more than a kg, one bottle. In summer months, especially when children are going to go for outdoor activities, they take at least 1.5 or 2 bottles. That itself has exceeded the upper limit of the weight they need to carry. The textbooks, syllabus is so outdated that it will well fit into Jurassic Park. We need to really look into what we are teaching. Why are we teaching? Or are we teaching at all? These are the questions we must answer as a community. Last, most importantly, we are putting water in huge plastic bottles. Plastic hazards are going to kill our children in the next generation. There is going to be an epidemic.
But they're sending the children with plastic bottles, Dr. Bagai, just so that they're not, having to carry that extra weight. At least when it comes to their bottles. So safe drinking water must be provided by schools. That's how we should begin.
Schools have to give. That's the mandatory basic. How can we overlook the fact that the school must give us clean drinking water? If that's not possible, shut down the schools.
Okay, Riddhi, let me bring you in and really understand what kind of a role can parents play in bringing about this change, because we've established by now that a lot of changes need to happen. They need to be implemented so that the child is not suffering. So how can parents push back without coming off as overprotective or intervening to a point that they should not?
Correct. So I think anything that's done at an individual level, it might be taken as interfering or overprotective, or
I mean, parents can't say we're not going to send our children with any textbooks whatsoever, right? So there has to be a balance.
Correct. So I feel any change has to happen at a community level. Like, Kerala, if we see, it's happening at a community level. So even for schools, if I as a parent go and want to create a change at an individual level, it would be very difficult. Instead, if all the parents can come together and they can have, ideas like the focus should be more on comprehension rather than coverage. What also Dr. Baga shared, that, it should not just be about, I want my child to learn every subject every day. So it should be about comprehension. It should be more about depth than speed, more about understanding the topic rather than just memorizing and not remembering everything. I rather, as a parent, have my child learn 10 things properly than do 100 things which they don't remember later. Also, I feel reason why most parents are not able to bring this shift, and not just the parent, even the schools, I feel, is because of some fear that, I might lose my image, my reputation. Teachers might feel I might lose my job, because I have so many teachers who are my students, like a lot of school owners, principals, and everybody is aware they want this to change. But there's a lot of fear, there's a lot of inertia, and then there's also habit. Like, you just get used to it and then you just keep running with it instead of, doing something about it. So I think these three things, fear, inertia, and habit, is what's stopping us. And if we get together collectively and, if we have, even the schools, faculty, everybody knows. So what's really happening now is the board is just sending some policy. The school is implementing those policies, and parents are complying with those policies silently. So everybody is in fear of change. But somebody has to get out of that fear of change or move out of inertia. And for that to happen, it cannot happen. Either we need another Gandhi
Yeah.
who can actually change everybody's mind, or the parents have to get together and do it. Like, even if you see for basic things like a screen, like usually, I'm just derailing a little, but this is so important. Even with phones, like, when children become 12, 13, somebody will get a phone, one child gets it, and then all children are like, my friend has it, I want it. But if parents get together and they decide that we are not going to give phones to our children, so if nobody is giving, there's no pressure on anybody.
Yeah. So
But if one
collective
parent-
pressure. So
the collective, yeah. So I
a
think
balanced judgment on what should be allowed should be taken by parents, and that should be the first pressure building tactic you're suggesting. I do want to take this to Rachna as well. Rachna, practically speaking, so by far you would be in the best position to tell us if in 1 year a certain syllabus needs to be completed. Practically speaking, can we do with a system where we don't have to send children with all textbooks every day? What is this kind of a blend that we can bring about that gets us to this perfect balance?
Of course, I think that can be done. We definitely need a structured approach towards that. Often, you must have seen, as Riddhi was pointing out regarding her son, that tasks are often repetitive in nature. We can definitely cut down on those books. We have multiple books for a particular subject. If we actually fix particular subjects for particular days, have certain bagless days, we can definitely complete the syllabus. And on this platform, I think I should take this opportunity to appeal to the boards also that we can definitely work towards cutting down the curriculum, which is actually adding unnecessary burden on the students and the parents alike. Nobody is actually
So now that
getting
we're
any
attempting
benefit.
to move away from rote learning, do you think it'll automatically start happening?
I personally do believe that, and that is the need of the hour, because rote learners at the end of the day, we do not need them, and it is not helping any one of us. Children are suffering, parents are suffering, children are not getting the employability skills that are needed at the end of the day.
Okay.
We need to focus on education rather than rote learning. Being an educator, I would like to repeat this ample times whenever given an opportunity, and I think someday that change will happen.
Okay, lovely. Dr. Bagai, very quickly, if we bring in these changes, so if we move away from textbooks, we will have to open our arms to an extent, even if that's a small margin, to screen time and technology. Now, doctors have warned against this as much. Are you open to that sort of a shift? The moment you put your textbooks down, you're going to have to resort to e-learning.
3 quick points. One is, I think school overall should be a pleasurable experience in which children should look forward to go to school. It should not be a deterrent or a fear in which, oh God, I have to go to school. I think that conceptual change has to be brought about as per yesterday. The curriculum has to change. It's so ridiculous to see botany being taught in huge depth for a child who's going into medicine. I don't treat plants now, right? Neither do I treat animals. So I think it has to be horses for courses rather than trying to put everything, as a buffet for a kid who's getting indigestion anyway. The second point really is, as far as the screen time is concerned, there is a lot of misconceptualization with regards to screen time. A minimum amount of screen time as far as academics is useful because the child gets used to adapting to a computer and using the keyboard. But the screen time also includes unnecessary use on iPads and cell phones and video games. That has to be curtailed. I know for a fact that this is extremely bad for the cognitive skills and the memory and the anxiety levels for children. There is a large study done by Oxford, by Stanford last year, in which they've shown 29% increase in cognitive skills if a child plays less of, especially the smartphone video games and so on. And last, most importantly, is we need to relook as to what we want to produce our kids to be. If the schools are a mere production house of producing more and more number of children for financial gains, then the net result is physical, mental, psychological, weaker population in the next few generations. And that's unfair.
Okay. So there comes a time when these heavy school bags start turning into a medical problem, and that's exactly what we're supposed to work on. Thank you so much. That's all the time we have. Thank you for joining in this morning and really help us understand what can be done, not really just identifying the problem, but also attempting to fix it. And this is where we begin this morning.